What a weekend it was, the Charles Schwab Challenge last weekend. Even from outside of a betting perspective, just from an entertainment perspective, I mean, what a tournament for the PGA Tour to return with. What a stacked leaderboard on Sunday. Came down to a playoff. Fun tournament to watch. And of course, I gave out Daniel Berger in last week's video. Now, in fairness, in the video, I only said I was going to take him top 20. That obviously cashed. Daniel Berger went on to win at 66-1. Overall. Now, some of you guys have messaged me on Twitter to let me know that you did actually take Daniel Berger at the 66-1 to win based off my suggestion. Congratulations to you guys. Obviously, that's a big win. I did end up jumping on him to win, but it wasn't until after Friday's round. I liked what I saw the first two rounds. I jumped on him to win at 34-1. So I still had a pretty decent win there as well. Congratulations to us. Hopefully, I can carry that luck into this weekend's tournament, which, without further ado, let's get into it. It is the RBC Heritage. Now, obviously, like last weekend, I'm going to split this video into two kind of halves here. First half, I'm going to break down the course, which is Harbour Town Golf links. In the second half video, I'm going to give out my picks for the event. So if you only care about my picks, go ahead and fast forward. If you want to get a little bit of a bigger breakdown on the course and my 5 key stats, stick around here. So let's get into that right now. Harbour Town Golf links. The first thing I got to say is if there's a course that anyone would say is similar to Harbour Town, it's actually Colonial last week. They're actually two very similar courses that the golfers are going to be playing on back-to-back weeks here. So a lot of my stats are going to be the exact same as they were last week because they are very similar courses. Now, there are a couple of key differences that I will say here that Harbour Town does have. First thing, you might remember in last week's video, I said that long distance hitters, guys who are long off the tee, weren't going to have much as a very big advantage. But I was actually proven wrong with that. We saw guys like Bryson DeChambeau, John Rahm, they were able to actually cut off the corners on dog legs. They are able to do some things with their distance to actually use it to their advantage. But at Harbour Town, it's going to be even harder for them to do that just because there's not as many dog legs. The fairways are lined by even more trees, and the trees are actually taller, so they're not going to have any angles to use their distance to cut off any dog legs. So, distance guys, they were able to use it effectively last week, better than I thought, but this week, I don't think they're going to be able to, so I'm staying away from those long hitters again this week. The other thing to keep in mind for Harbour Town, their greens. They're tiny little postage stamp greens, second smallest greens on tour. Also, it's a par 71, 7,099 yards just about. And what this course is the big term you're going to hear from handicappers is it's a ball strikers course. Basically what just that means is that guys who are good with their irons, guys who can place it right where they want to off the tee, guys who are able to hit greens, just have very good iron play. So let's get into my 5 key stats to look out for when you're going to handicap this event yourself if you're just going to pick golfers on your own. These are the 5 key stats. So driving accuracy, once again, same as last week, similar courses, hard fairways to hit. You got to be able to keep it in the fairway. It's a short course. Anytime there's a short course, usually a good indication that you'll have to be accurate. The second one's going to be strokes gained, tee to green. Obviously, just an overall overlook at how golfers are from the tee box to the green. Pretty important stat that you want to look at quite often when you're betting on golf. Next, we're going to look at greens and regulation. So this is actually the one I subbed in. I took out par 4 scoring. It is a par 71 compared to par 70 at Colonial. So one fewer par 4. So I took that out, tossed in greens and regulation just because of how small the greens are here. We need guys who can hit greens. Next, we're looking at scrambling. Small greens, guys are going to miss the greens. They got it when they do miss the green. They got to get back on the green and save par by scrambling. And then finally, putting. We're going to look at strokes gained putting in every single tournament. Why would you ever handicap a golf tournament when you don't look at what half the game is? So strokes gained putting is going to be the last one on there. So there you go. Those are my 5 key stats. I got a little bit of a bonus stat too. Another one that I think might be important for this course because the greens are so small is proximity to the hole from the fairway. I didn't add that in here, but it might be something you might want to look at. You might want to look at specifically just last week's results. How close are guys getting to the hole from their approach shot? So there you go. That's my breakdown for the course. Those are my 5 key stats to look out for. Let's get into my top 3 picks for the RBC Heritage. The first one, I'm looking at a guy who actually had a very good week last week, but there's still a lot of betting value on him, which I was a little bit surprised to see. He was in the final pairing on Sunday, didn't have a great Sunday though, but still had a great tournament overall. That's Gary Woodland. Gary Woodland, the current defending U.S. Open champion. So 5 key stats. He's 53rd in driving accuracy, so he's a pretty accurate driver. Strokes gained tee to green, he's 14th. Greens in regulation, he's 7th. So, I mean, if those aren't ball striker numbers, I mean, I don't know what is. 14th, 7th, those are huge. Scrambling, he's pretty good as well. 17th in scrambling. Putting, he's 64th. And he actually had a very good weekend of putting this past weekend. That 64th is actually an improvement from where he was before this past weekend. So it looked like he did work on his game with his flat stick during the break. Now his odds, I'm going to get, excuse me, a little bit more aggressive with Gary Woodland here. I'm going to take him top 20 at plus 175. I'm also going to take him top 10 at plus 350. Now, if you want to get even more aggressive, you can go top 5 at plus 700. And then finally, for him to win, he's plus 3,300, aka 33 to 1. So that's my first pick, the defending US Open champion, Gary Woodland. Next one, I'm going with a guy who actually didn't play last weekend. He's making his return to action this weekend. It's the Englishman Tyrrell Hatton. So last week, a big reason why I picked Daniel Berger is because of how good he was, especially the last few tournaments heading into the break. Same thing here with Tyrrell Hatton. He won his first PGA Tour tournament just a couple weeks before the break. And look at these numbers. They are very good numbers for this style of course. Driving accuracy, 45th. Strokes gained tee to green, first. He is first on the PGA Tour in strokes gained tee to green. 8th in greens in regulation. And then 77th in scrambling. And 31st in strokes gained putting. Now, because he didn't play last weekend, I'm going to be a little bit conservative with him. I'm going to take him top 20 at plus 200. If you want to get more aggressive, and if you're curious, here are the rest of the odds. Top 10 plus 550, 10 to 1 for him to finish top 5, and then for him to win the whole damn thing, he is 50 to 1. Also, I do have to mention he is European. He's from England, obviously, and this is a link-style course. You usually see European golfers have a little bit more success on link-style courses because that's what the majority of courses in Europe are, especially in the England area. A lot of links courses compared to how many there are in the States. So I usually like Europeans on link-style course. Tyrrell Hatton, he's a European, so I just had to mention that as well. And then finally, my third and final pick, it's always a little bit of a long shot. And that's no different here. I'm going to take Brian Harman. I actually bet on Brian Harman. I think it was at least once on the 3-ball bet this past weekend, and he won for me, and I kind of liked his game. Now, if we just look at his overall stats on the PGA Tour this season, they're not great. But if you look at stats just for the past week, just at the Charles Schwab Challenge, he had a pretty good weekend. So overall, driving accuracy, 62nd, strokes gained tee to green, 58th, not too bad there. Scrambling, tied for 20th, and then putting, he's 51st, but obviously the one I left out there, greens in regulation, because in total for the whole season, he's an ugly 141st. But just this past weekend at the Charles Schwab Challenge, he was tied for 24th in greens in regulation. So big improvement there. And in saying that, I will mention this as well. If you're going to look at stats, if you're going to handicap the event here for yourself, it's not a bad idea just to look at also how golfers did this past weekend, just to get a kind of feel of how they're doing coming out of the break compared to necessarily the whole 2020 season. So that's my third pick, Brian Harman. I'm just going to take him top 20 at plus 300. But if you want to get more aggressive, you can take him top 10 at plus 800, top 5 at 16 to 1, and then to win 125 to 1. So huge long shot to win. Last thing I'll actually mention here, now that those are my 3 picks, if there is a week that you want to take a long shot, this might be the week. So past 2 winners 2 years ago, it was Satoshi Kodera, and I know I'm mispronouncing that. I apologize. He's the Japanese golfer. 2 years ago, he won here at 250 to 1. Last year, CT Pan, 125 to 1. He was the winner here last year. So if you want to take a long shot, it might be the time to do it. But then again, don't forget this tournament usually takes place, I believe it's a week right after the Masters. So most of the top golfers don't usually come to this tournament. That's not the case this weekend, obviously. Most of the top guys are all here this weekend. So maybe it's not a good time to take an underdog, but history would say the last 2 years underdogs were successful. So there you go. That's my betting preview and picks for the RBC Heritage held at Harbour Town Golf Links. Best of luck to your bets and enjoy the event.